In the soft, fading light of medieval England, long before the hum of machines or the noise of crowded cities, the village of Woolpit rested quietly among the gentle hills of Suffolk. It was a place of simplicity, where the rhythm of life flowed with the seasons, and where the world beyond the fields felt impossibly distant. And yet, in this seemingly ordinary countryside, one of history's most mysterious events unfolded, an event so strange, so quietly haunting, that it has echoed through nearly 9 centuries of whispered retellings. Tonight, let me guide you gently into that moment as you drift into calmness, listening to the true story of the Green Children of Woolpit. The story begins sometime in the 12th century, during the reign of King Stephen or perhaps Henry II, depending on which chronicle you trust. Woolpit, whose name comes from wolf pits, deep traps once used to capture wolves, might have been the last place anyone expected a miracle or a mystery or anything unusual at all. Farmers worked their fields, children played in dusty pots, and life unfolded as it always had. But everything changed on a quiet afternoon, when harvesters stepped into the green fields and found something that made them stop in their tracks. 2 children, a boy and a girl, were standing near the edge of the wolf pits. They looked lost, frightened, and completely out of place. Their clothes were made of a fabric the villagers had never seen. The colors were strange, muted yet unfamiliar. But what truly froze the harvesters where they stood was the children's skin. It was green. Not sickly, not bruised, not faint. It was distinctly, undeniably green. You can imagine the silence that must have followed, the cautious steps forward, the confused whispers. Some thought they were spirits, others thought they were fairy folk, slipped into the human world by accident. But as the villagers approached, the children shrank back in fear, clutching each other tightly. The boy looked younger, fragile. The girl, slightly older, kept her arm wrapped protectively around him. They did not speak English. They didn't seem to understand the villagers at all. Their language was unlike anything ever heard in the region. Still, the people of Woolpit were not cruel. They gently led the children back to the village, where they were brought to the home of Sir Richard de Calne, a respected landowner known for his hospitality. There, the children were offered food, but they refused everything. Bread, meat, fruit, nothing tempted them. They shook their heads, cried softly, and clung to one another. Days passed, and still they would not eat. Sir Richard feared they might starve. Then, one day, something changed. A group of villagers brought freshly harvested beans into the house, broad beans still in their pods, common in medieval England. The moment the Green Children saw them, their eyes lit up. They rushed toward the beans with an almost desperate hunger. But curiously, they did not open the pods. They tried to eat them raw, pods and all. When the villagers showed them how to open the pods and eat the beans inside, the children finally began to eat properly. From that moment on, beans became their staple food. They ate them eagerly, as if they had lived on them all their lives. As the weeks passed, the children slowly grew more comfortable. The green tint of their skin began to fade, though never completely. They learned enough English to communicate, and the girl, who adapted more quickly, eventually shared their story. And it was a story unlike anything the villagers had ever heard. She said they came from a land where the sun never shone brightly, a place of perpetual twilight, where everything was dim and muted, a place they called St. Martin's Land. Their home, she said, was separated from the world by a great river, and beyond the river stood a radiant land, bright, overwhelming, filled with a light they had never understood. She and her brother, she explained, had been tending their father's flock when they heard a strange sounded bell, distant but clear. They followed it into a cavern or tunnel, long and winding. They walked, and eventually they found themselves emerging into dazzling sunlight in Woolpit. It is at this point in the story that historians, legends, and imaginations collide. Some believe the girl's tale described an underground world, perhaps a forgotten community or a hidden settlement cut off from medieval society. Others think it hints at a symbolic world, maybe a religious or spiritual metaphor. And some, especially modern theorists, whisper about portals, parallel worlds, and gateways between realms. But the villagers of Woolpit simply listened, amazed, unsure what to make of the strange, but gentle children who had wandered into their lives. Life changed after the boy and girl arrived. Sadly, the boy became sick not long after they began eating normal food. He never fully recovered from the ordeal of their journey, or perhaps from the shock of their new environment. A few months later, he passed away, and the villagers buried him with care, though no one fully understood who he had been or where he had come from. The girl, however, thrived. She grew into a young woman, learned fluent English, and eventually adapted entirely to village life. According to some chronicles, she was baptized, worked in Sir Richard's household, and in time, even married a man from Kingsland. Some accounts say she lived a normal life from then on, though with a temperament often described as bold or unrestrained, characteristics perhaps influenced by her mysterious origins. Yet, even as her skin color faded, the memory of her rival never did. The villagers continued to whisper about St. Martin's Land, and scholars recorded the tale in chronicles such as those by Ralph of Coggeshall and William of Newburgh. These weren't storytellers or traveling bards, they were educated medieval historians who carefully documented the world around them, and both insisted that the appearance of the green children truly happened. Over the centuries, many theories emerged. Some believed the children were Flemish refugees whose parents had died, and their green appearance came from malnutrition. Others argued they were from an isolated community, where people lived in caves or deep forests, their diet affecting their skin tone. But even these explanations do not account for the children's strange language, their unfamiliar clothes, or the girl's chilling story of a twilight world separated by a river of light. There are also those who view the story through a mythological lens. Green, after all, has long been associated with the fairy folk of English folklore. Woolpit sits in a region rich in legends of hidden realms, strange visitors, and mysterious beings who occasionally interact with the human world. Maybe the villagers saw the children through the lens of their own folklore, blending reality and imagination into something magical. But what makes the story of the green children so unique is that it refuses to sit neatly in any category. It is too detailed to be dismissed as pure legend, too strange to be accepted as simple fact, too deeply recorded to fade away, and too mysterious to fully explain. It stands at the crossroads of history and myth, a quiet reminder that even in the most ordinary places, extraordinary things may happen. As you imagine the fields of Woolpit, bathed in the glow of the late afternoon sun, you might picture the villagers pausing in their work, watching to frightened children emerge from the shadows of the wolf pits. You might imagine the silent confusion, the hesitations, the gentle gestures of reassurance. You might envision the children's green faces, their wide eyes, their hands clasped tightly together as they tried to understand the world they had fallen into. And you might wonder, what did they feel as they stepped into the blinding English daylight for the first time? What did they hear in that strange bell that drew them from their home? What did they remember of the Twilight land they left behind? History gives us only fragments. The rest is silence. Yet that silence is what makes the story so haunting, so soothing, so perfect for a night like this, when the world is quiet and your mind drifts gently between mystery and calm. The tale of the green children and of Woolpit invites you to relax into uncertainty, to let your imagination wander, and to accept that not every question needs an answer. Some stories are meant simply to be experienced, to be felt softly, like a whisper across centuries. So, as you settle deeper into comfort, allow the quiet mystery of their journey to wrap around you. Let the soft rhythm of this ancient tale ease your thoughts. Remember the Twilight land, the green children, the gentle villagers, and the strange pathway between worlds, and let yourself drift peacefully into sleep.